Should we talk about kindergarten redshirting?
Okay, before we jump in, I've got a fun little treat for my local Chicago listeners. My incredibly talented friends at A Little Photo Studio are offering $50 off a professional photo session when you use the code BCR50. And trust me, these are fun photos. I actually have a few that I've done at A Little Photo Studio hanging in my house. They are creative, they are different, and you will have fun at this shoot, I promise. This is an offer good through September 1st, so grab it now. If you've been thinking about family fall photos or even updating your headshots, this is your sign. I will link all of the info in the show notes. Go grab this offer right now.
Yes,
Are you scared?
the topic du jour.
So kindergarten redshirting is simply delaying kindergarten entry, often for a late summer or early fall birthday. I think a bit of the history is in college sports roots. So kids are going to school later and maybe bigger and stronger. What's your definition, and why do you think it's such a big topic?
Well, I think it's always existed in some way, especially tied to like the size of your kid, not necessarily like their developmental milestones. I think, I had friends growing up that were, um, that I remember learning were older, like much later, like when you're turning 21 and you like one of your friends like randomly 21 already, like, and that I feel like that's when you would find that out about your friend, or when they were 18 and they were like already 18, and you're
Yeah.
like, what happened here? And it was always some sort of growth thing. So like I had friends that were on, like I later found out like growth hormones and things like that if they were like really little or they felt that they were small, going into, and then they would like hold them back. So I think historically you would see more kids get held back for, like their physical size. And then I think, um, up until like the advent of like pretty significant speech services, I think that like speech was probably a big one that
Yeah.
parents used as like a barometer if their kid was ready.
Yeah.
And then now it's a lot of like, I feel like emotional regulation skills, which is to me problematic because I think, you know, it's a totally different environment. So you're withholding them from like the environment where they would be learning those skills necessarily. So
Mhm.
I'm not a really big proponent of holding back students. I know that it still happens, but from a policy perspective, a lot of school districts just won't do it unless there's some like medical reason for it. I've had kids that were born, like super premature that, got held back. I know, that's one of the only situations that I'm aware of in my practice where it happened. But I think that it's a really important thing to look at objectively with your kid and not in the context of like their friends and things like that. There's always going to be kids
Ugh,
that are way bigger than your kid, and
yeah.
there's always going to be kids that randomly learned how to read or spoke really early or walked really early. And
Yeah.
there, I, this was inevitable going to come up, but like go watch the baby race
Oh,
episode
yeah.
with Louis, where
Yeah.
it's like that episode could be scaled to any age of kids. And I think that that's, just one of those things that, you really have to think about like what is the need that you're trying to accommodate,
Mm.
and is it so important that it requires a year delay for your child. So, I would imagine that since 2004, when special education really started taking shape in the current form that it is, when IDEA was, instituted, I would say that there's probably a pretty direct correlation and like an inverse relationship between the amount of kids that are, being held back or starting late and the increase in funding and, access to special education services. Because really, the point, one of the major points of special education from just a pure impact perspective is making sure that kids don't get held back and that don't have to start. So
Yeah.
people don't really think about special education that way, but I would guess that those graphs are like exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been one of the kind of like under talked about benefits of the increase in special education services, especially speech services. I would say, like speech is, you have birth to three speech, which can be like really comprehensive speech services, like working with your pediatrician early on that. Getting OT for your kid early if they need it. Those types of things can be
Yeah.
accommodated in a really substantial way. Um, and funded too. A lot of them are publicly funded, and
Well, that's
then
what's
you can send your kid to this grade that they're supposed to be in. Like that's
yeah.
we do a lot of like corrective grade changes. I feel like in the school that I worked at had like a dual or multi-age grade bands, and
Okay.
one of the kind of weird benefits of having that, which doesn't exist very many places. But we were able to retroactively correct grade bumps and
Oh,
grade
wow.
hold back sometimes without the kid knowing or like their peers knowing. And I always enjoyed doing that because I could feel the kids' response to it. And I guess my biggest argument for not holding your kid back would be that I've never been in a meeting with a kid that was held back and they were like, no, keep me here.
Yeah.
Like they never say that. They're always like, oh, thank God I'm going to like where I'm supposed to be, or like
Yeah.
wanted this for so long, or a parent will be like, I made a mistake and I shouldn't. That is 95% of the conversations around this down the line are all like, I shouldn't have done this. So I think that
Yeah.
the services and the needs, if you really focus in on them and talk to the district and talk to the school psychologist and your pediatrician, I think most of them are going to tell you to keep them in the grade that they're supposed to be in, and then just provide services around that.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing that people don't think about. One, with holding kids back, like is are they going to get the need met that they're struggling with, or are you thinking that just repeating the same thing that you did this year twice is going to make it stick? That's not usually how it works. Like usually if it's like a big reading struggle, then
Yeah,
the plan should be okay, he's going to get pulled out for reading time with the reading specialist. Here's the plan,
right.
but he's still going to go with his class, or he needs speech, but like it's not usually if there's a struggle with a child, usually there needs to be a really specific plan instead
Yeah.
of just let's just try the same thing again and see if it sticks this time.
Yeah, and I think that's the really nice thing about these personal reading plans in Wisconsin, and like how what they're doing in other states too, is that there's a non-special education route that doesn't require an evaluation um, to qualify for what amounts to being additional services. And I think that and there's no stigma. The stigma around special education has really gone away, I think, in the
Yeah,
last like 10-15 years, which
agree.
is great, but it still exists. And parents are occasionally you know not receptive to the idea of their kid even being evaluated for special education. And I very rarely put a evaluation through for a kid that where the parent is not on board, because ultimately the parent has to. A kid can be found to meet criteria for special education, but the services being provided is actually like a consent that the parents have to sign. So the kids would be labeled as special education eligible, but they wouldn't be getting special ed services because you ultimately have to have consent from one parent um, in order to get those services going. So um, I think that having additional routes, especially for reading, is really important. I think the stigma around speech is largely gone away.
Yeah,
It seems like there's so many people with speech. I tell people all the time, speech teachers are amazing. They're like the super special education teacher. They do so much. Their
they
caseloads are
truly
always like
are.
you know, 40, 50 kids, and they just like get them in and get them out.
They
And
are.
they're
Yes.
they're amazing. They're usually really, really good at paperwork too, so that's always nice. But they're really these like autonomous machines, and they're great. So I especially with kids that have like high speech needs, like if your district offers you like comprehensive speech services, take them, because you can't get them other places. Like I've had a kid. I had a kid once that we that had access to a really comprehensive speech program in K4 versus going to school full time in K4 and then getting like your normal amount of speech. And in that situation, I recommended grabbing the extra speech services at that time because it was like 3 hours a day of comprehensive speech services versus,
Oh, wow.
um, 4K full day, which is a lot about just learning how to go to school and what school is. Um,
Yeah.
that kid did so well in speech that I would imagine he's probably in a place where he would get dismissed, like first, second grade from speech.
Wow.
So that was a situation I remember that was really like instrumental to my thoughts on that like holding back or like pushing forward process. And I think
Okay.
speech is speech is the big one. I think speech is the one that is the most parents get really frustrated about and anxious about and work with their pediatrician about. There's obviously lots of milestones with physical development like crawling and things like that. But again, those are things that pediatric OTs can work with. Um,
Yeah.
and then like the sensory stuff and all the emotional stuff, that stuff can really be handled in a school environment. I mean, like you can get ABA therapy, you can get lots of different types of, you can get play therapy and all different types of things like that on the side. But I don't know that I would ever recommend using, the emotional regulation skills that are being displayed at home as like your barometer for if they're going to be able to emotionally regulate in a classroom full of kids.
I th-
Um,
yeah. I think you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but people are redshirting for lesser reasons. Like they're big, the big, huge. I mean, I posted a video about like kindergarten. Your kids are going to learn these things in kindergarten. Why do you want a redshirt? And I got upwards of 3,000 comments on TikTok saying, I'm a kindergarten teacher and I highly recommend redshirting. Why are we rushing kids' childhood? Why are we taking away? Why can't we give them an extra year of childhood? Like hold them back as long as you can. Teacher here recommend this, principal here recommend this. And first of all, I'm like, just for no reason, you just like that's the big thing, like childhood. Don't you think they're going to enjoy school? That's also part of childhood. But like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a very personal decision. There's no like rule. There's no real like laws around it. I get the sports argument, I guess. I
Oh, you
mean,
do. That's nice. That's generous of
there's,
you.
if you're like that, they do all kinds of like reclassifications and things like that in high school now um,
Oh, so it
for
might not even
sports.
matter.
So it doesn't even really matter to do it that early because you can reclassify when you're in high school if it's like really that important to you.
I guess it
And
is important to some people. Like Taylor Swift's mom named her Taylor Swift in case she was famous. She thought it was a good, famous name. So I guess people are thinking ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's tough. I like the whole concept of like another year of childhood. I mean, then I would question like what is the childhood, is the childhood that you're like prov- or whatever the thing is that you're providing like so amazing that like it can't be replicated in any other time of the year, like
Never after
during
3
the
p.m.
weekends
Absolutely
or like,
no childhood is happening after 3 p.m.
yeah, like no, if your kid, like your kid's just like not catching ladybugs anymore, you don't do like movies outside on like the garage door, you don't like go on mud hikes or like catch frogs or like stay out in the rain, like what what is the thing that is being withheld by them going to school for 7 hours a day? So I don't.
And, like, that is part of their childhood. Like, school is as
There's a big
I
social element to the school day that I guess I could understand it if you were, you know, if you were one of those families that was like schlepping their kids around trying to see like every national park before they're 6, and you
Sure.
got like a big rig and like you're doing that whole thing, and your kids are, being homeschooled or whatever, and that's like the lifestyle that you're doing. I guess I could like wrap my head around it, because part of me has always been like, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
But on
But
the other
also you
side,
can kinda sorry, do the other side, yeah.
no, I mean, but on the other side, like I just, yeah, I agree with you that there's like a whole social element of like figuring out like your friends and like who you want to play with, and like meeting kids in your neighborhood, and like meeting kids through activities. You can't just meet them through activities. You got to meet them in like structured settings, and then like learning how to like take instruction and take direction from someone who you're not related to is pretty much like the only thing you learn in K4.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like that's like the whole point of K4. There's no really other learning goals. It's like, will you
yeah,
listen to another adult that
yeah,
you didn't live with?
yeah. You
And
know, I have a summer birthday and I was not redshirted. I probably would be so much more successful if I had been. Um, no, I'm just kidding. But I'm glad because I do remember like I hear whenever I hear that a child is 7, I like hear this moment from my own childhood of this man. I was in like an antique shop with my mom and in the summertime, my birthday's in the summer, and this man that worked there said, "How old are you?" And my mom said, and I was very shy, and she said, she's 7." It was like the week before my birthday, and he was like, "Only 7? You're so tall." And and my mom said, "Not even 7. Her birthday is next week." And anytime I hear someone say that they're 7, I hear that man say, "Only 7?" And I remember being like mortified that I was that tall. I was probably like 5'9" as a 7-year-old. And not really, but like imagine if I had been redshirted and I then had my growth spurt. I was self-conscious my entire childhood about how tall I was. I was always taller than all the boys. You just like as a girl, like that feels like when you're developing and you're like learning that, it just like feels like, the teacher would say like, "Oh, Beth is the tallest in the class." Like if I had been redshirted, what a nightmare. I would have had so much more stress about being tall.
yeah, I mean, I think it's probably very like community based too. Like I'm sure there's like certain parts of the country, or there are like certain communities where it's like more common. But I do think that, from what I have seen, there are plenty of districts that just say like we just like don't do that. Like we don't bump kids forward, and we don't, push them back. And
Yeah,
there that's kind of like a call that like a superintendent can just make. They
really.
don't have to provide any rationale for it either. They can just say like, we don't really do that here. And I guess you could like go to war over it, but like I I think there's not enough like benefits to it that I've seen, unless there's like a really, really good, services based reason, like that, like comprehensive speech reason, like that.
Mhm.
To me, that is like the thing that I will never forget, is like that family was deciding between basically giving their kid access to like the best speech programming that they could have access to for free, you know, um, and then hitting that one issue so profoundly so that it wasn't something that had to get taken care of over the next like 4 years in school, and maybe he would be done within like 1 to 2 years. It's kind of like
Yeah.
getting braces early or something like that. Like
Yeah.
one of those types of things where it's like, you just like, when do you want to do this?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to give kids, you know, the childhood, or whatever you want to say. But yeah, I don't know. My kids all went to full day 3K, so
Well,
um,
yeah, that's okay.
very much believe in that. I think it's a good thing, and I think that they've all benefited from it. So
Here's another drama that happened on the internet, and then I'm gonna have you do rapid fire questions from our audience. But the drama on the internet, once I mentioned, like, first of all, this is an incredible privilege that not everyone has this to face. You know,
yeah,
it's a lot of people like have to send their kids to kindergarten on time because their job they have a job that they can't like juggle the daycare transitions with. And oh, you wouldn't believe how hurt the teachers' feelings were that they said this is so offensive that you would say that people should send their kids to kindergarten because their parents have to work. School is not daycare, which of course we know it's not, but it
yeah,
also it parents do rely on school for their needs. And again, I guess like saying school is not daycare. Of course, no one is saying that a teacher is a daycare worker, and also like workers are amazing. And but there's just I think it's like one of those things that like you're gonna offend someone no matter what you say. But
yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it also depends on like the law. I mean, like in Wisconsin, the compulsory age is 6, so like you have to send your kid to school when they're 6, and you do see people that wait until they're 6 to send their kid to school.
And does
Um,
that seem to be hard on the kid?
I think so. I mean, I think it's hard if you are running and going into a room as a 6-year old and there's kids in that room who have been within the school structure and understand how schools work for 2.5 years before you. I mean, my kids were all in school when they were 3,
Right.
and then there's like a kid in 6 that is coming in who's never been in school before. You can't tell me that that kid is just going to like immediately adjust to everything. And
Right.
I think that allowing kids to adjust to school, however you feel about, the existence of school or the structure of school, it is a public service that all kids have access to. And that's just how our country runs, and it's not something that's going to like change. I mean, like the most variable forms of school happen in like the preschool model. There's outdoor preschools,
Yeah.
there's half day preschools, there's you can pick your days of the week preschools, and yeah, and in preschool, yeah, it is like childcare to some extent, but it's also a blend of childcare and like early intervention too. I mean, like if you send your kid to school, um, there's people at the school who are going to be monitoring, developmental milestones for you. So you're not the only data point that's just, saying something.
Right.
So it doesn't fall completely on you to notice if something is, not necessarily wrong, but like delayed or needs some extra support. Like what parent wouldn't want that additional set of eyes on something? It's kind of like having, a pediatrician around your kid all day,
Yeah.
specific for like non-medical things, like sometimes you just don't realize if your kid needs something,
Yeah.
unless other people are watching it. And so I think that if you can send your kid to school and for like a full day, and sometimes they even like do stuff that they wouldn't do at home. Like my kids always napped at school, which was
Ah,
crazy because they stopped napping when they were like 2.5 at home.
yeah.
So they would nap at school. So that was, to me, that was amazing. And I
Yeah.
know that that's actually very common, that kids will, have, things that you think you might have like the ship has sailed on, for you, if it's napping or, like quiet time or,
Yeah.
please and thank you, like those things can be reinforced at the school level, even if they're not like fully showing back up at home. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that it, like I said, there's too many people that I encounter down the road that say they wish they hadn't done it.
Mm,
Uh, and that's one of my main data points for it, is that you very rarely hear people that were like, this was the good decision. It's a huge decision,
yeah.
but the amount of people that I have come to me and ask for retroactive changes to that decision far surpasses the people who come to me and they were like, you know, this is good, or like, I'm glad that we did this. Those situations are always somewhat tied towards like super premature. I'm talking like 20 weeks, like those types of kids. And then kids that have some like substantial communication need.
That was my nephew. He had a substantial communication need. Like, I think he was like a full year delayed, and he has a summer birthday, and they did redshirt him, and they have a great experience. And I will say, I didn't mention this, but I'm like not like for or against. Like, I think everything is like going to be case by case, and
Yeah, it's your right
and
as a parent to decide. I think that it just should be rooted in something service related. I just don't
agree.
think that it should be rooted in something that is like a subjective
Just popular.
thing. Yeah, I mean,
It
there's
seems like
always
it's just
ways to
trendy
like,
to do it right now.
yeah,
It seems almost everyone is like, I'm debating it right now for absolutely, like, there's no reason except for that somebody said they should debate it.
yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to rapid fire these questions
Okay,
to you. See if you can answer them.
I'm gonna
I'll
try.
try to answer them too. Let's see if we can answer them with yes or no or one sentence.
Okay, all right.
um
Seems like a punishment, but okay, I'll do it.
we'll see. I don't know. I haven't looked at all the questions.
Okay.
Okay. Should this be up to the parents alone?
The idea of redshirting,
Should redshirting kindergarten be up to the parents alone?
yes,
Okay,
because yeah,
great.
because I think that ultimately, um, as a parent, you do have to have, there has to be like a line in the sand of like what you can decide to do
Right. Um, does birth order influence the choice?
in terms of like
Like
your
if someone's
second
like,
kid
oh,
being
this is,
crazy.
yeah, because everyone's second kid is crazy.
Um, no,
Okay. Does it make a difference if it's a boy or a girl?
I would be willing to bet that. I don't think it makes a difference, but I would be willing to bet that the holding back kids is skews like 75% boys,
I
if
would
not
be willing.
higher.
I would bet that too. Is it fine to redshirt a May birthday, or should it only be June, July, August?
I mean, I think I think August is really like a gray area.
Mm-hmm.
I think August is a gray area,
Okay,
and I don't think May, June, July. No,
so then the next question answered itself. Where do we draw the line? I have a March birthday kid, and I'm trying to decide.
March. Um, I mean, I'm like a late April birthday. I can't imagine my parents being like,
Oh,
"We have a
what?
big decision to make."
A-
No, I think August is where you can like have some, you know, definite thoughts about it, because there might be a kid in their class that is like almost a full
a
year
full
older.
year, yeah,
Yeah, and but again, like that's not a bad thing.
yeah. That's true. That's a
And
good
you
thing
can't
to
tell me
remember.
that like all the popularity of the like multi-age units in schools and like that kind of Montessori type thing, how is that any different than having a kid
That's so
August
true.
and then September? Like that's the same thing. So what's the intersection between the parents who love the Montessori model and multi-age rooms, and then the same ones who would be like, well, I'm not going to send my kid, with an August birthday to this. It's the same thing. Like those parents are like, would they send their kid to a Montessori school because they're going to be exposed to the exact same situation?
That is a great point. Um, this one's help, all capital letters. 4-year-old, July birthday. Language, reasoning, and communication is 100. Social emotional, eh.
I would ask like, does this child have siblings? Do you live in a neighborhood with lots of kids? Are you going to the park a lot? Are you
Mm.
letting kids make like social mistakes, or do you just like hover over, like one of my one of my biggest things as a parent when I'm at a park is, what if a parent is following the kid onto the playground equipment? That's not good.
Yeah, kids have to be able to take risks.
Yeah, you can't be like like when there's the parent like way up top on the top of the playground thing, I'm like, what are you doing, man? Just like get out of there. Like, just
That's or like even intervening in fights. Like I was talking to my sister about this and she's like, "Do I just like let the fights happen sometimes?" Like
yeah.
I'm like
The
worried they're going to
sibling
kill
fights
each other.
sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Like on the playground, I think I'd probably like my administrative gut would
Right.
come into like play. But the yeah, like you there's a certain amount of like if you're worried about how your kid is going to be social emotional, is it just a reflection on how they are socially emotionally at home, or
Mhm.
is it like based on something with how they are in a situation that would be similar to school? Like, have you ever sent them to a camp? Have they ever played like a team sport? Have they
Mm.
ever have they ever gone to like a group structured activity at like the art museum or something like that? Like if those things are going horribly all the time, then even then I don't know that I would take them back. I think I would just seek out ABA or like play therapy, or see if there's some sort of like sensory need there through like an occupational therapist consult.
Yeah.
um, because again, that I just don't think that should be like the piece of the puzzle that holds a kid back.
Yeah, it seems like it's like the red shirting idea is like not this is maybe a bad example, but like just going to like a medication instead of like, okay, what other things could we try? Should we change diet? Should we change exercise? Like not necessarily saying like with a kid with ADHD, but like in general, like just being like, okay, this is the problem. But it's like there are other things to try before we go and say, let's just do this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, how much different is it from like a lot of the one of the most common barriers for a kid to be like in childcare is are like they like potty trained.
Right.
Like how is that any different from how we're responding to some of these needs? Even if your kid is not potty trained, if they're the compulsory age of education in the state that you live in, the school has to be able to accommodate that need.
Yeah.
If they're younger than the age, it's kind of up to the school to decide if they have the staffing and the support in place to do it and the training, and that's like a more variable discussion. But like if your kid is not potty trained and you're trying to decide if you should like send them to kindergarten, if they're 6 or they're the age that they're required to be at school, the school will have to work with that, and they will have to figure out like a team of people to be trained to support that. And also, that happens in literally every school.
Yeah.
There's always kids that are working on that. Um, Talk to any janitor in any elementary school in America, and they will tell you exactly where and how they clean up urine in every single
Yeah.
floor that they have in the building.
And talk to any kindergarten teacher. Like
Yes.
when I was in a
Why do
kindergarten
you think there's
classroom, we had
bathrooms in kindergarten rooms?
right,
Like,
exactly. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a few more before I let you go. Very extroverted, very tall, late July birthday, reading level H. Teacher said she's okay, but I still want a red shirt.
if the teacher says she's okay, you should trust the teacher.
Okay.
Um, Especially if it's a teacher that has been doing it for a little bit, and has some context for like community. Are you in one of these communities where like everyone's tall? Like I'm from my hometown has lots of tall people, and I'm not like short, but I was definitely like on the lower end of my friends. I always felt like, and I'm like almost 6 feet tall, but like there, if you're from one of these communities where like everyone is like Nordic and giant, like
Yeah.
that, you have to like put that into context too. You know,
Yeah.
my grandma is from like the south side of Chicago, and she used to say all the time that like her town was like full of short people, like short Polish people. And she
Wow.
was like, you guys moved to this town where there's all these like German people, and they're all like super hot, like higher, and like she's like, go to church. She's like, go to church and just like look at, like, I can't even see church. That's what she would say. She would be like, I go to your church and I can't see. I only want to go to my church because then I can actually see what's happening.
Oh my gosh.
So there's some like community contextualization, I think, to that too. So like if the teacher's like, you know, Or look at like a class picture. You know, the class pictures come back. Look at the class picture. Like one of
Yeah.
my sons is the smallest kid in his class.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know how long he's going to be the smallest kid, but it doesn't matter. He's the fastest kid.
That's cool.
That's fine.
Okay, I just saw not a question, but one of the things in the box that said, "Did it? Bad idea. Had to fight to skip ahead due to immature classmates. He was so much more mature than his classmates."
Yeah, it's a hard thing to. It's much easier to do than to fix.
Mm,
That would be like one of my big. If you're going to put that on a bumper sticker, like that would be the bumper sticker
I
because
like
it
it.
doing a red shirt is not hard. Trying to fix it or change your mind after you've done it is extremely hard and can be traumatic to you and your kid and their peers and things like that. So
Yeah. So someone asked like top three signs that you should redshirt. I think we kind of talked about that, like
yeah,
a developmental, like a
yeah, some sort
delay.
of like I would say like act like the I would say my number one would be like a recommendation from like your pediatrician or a therapist um, for comprehensive programming for speech would be like my number one. Um, Second one would be if they're under the age of um, compulsory education and they're not consistently toilet trained, I would say is two. That could also be one, too. And then third one would be like if there's some sort of like medical thing, like a super premature birth situation where, or that would be one. Oh, I have a fourth one. So
Oh, good.
type 1 diabetes, you in order to have a continuous glucose monitor, you have to be a certain weight. I think it's 50 pounds. If your kid is not 50 pounds, and I've dealt with this situation last year, and it was a really important system that we designed to accommodate this kid that was not old enough to have a continuous glucose monitor. But that was a situation where they were deciding on a red shirt based on his ability to wear something that was a life-saving device. So um, we made the system work, even though he wasn't 6. But it took a lot of work to design and like get up. Not to say that it could have been a situation where the school and the parents would be just like, this is not, I don't feel comfortable, or it's like not safe, or like there's too many spikes and we don't have confidence in the school's ability to like handle this type of thing. That's a totally legit reason. I would say a diabetes related continuous glucose weight of the kid related thing is a totally valid reason to do it. But if that is the situation, I would really encourage families to work with the school to try to come up with some sort of um, team or plan or something that would allow for the student to still be able to go to kindergarten. But you know, I'm, you know, I'm from a family that has diabetics. None of my kids are diabetic. I have worked with lots of families with kids that are type 1 diabetes, and I know how that can totally change, the like how you approach the day. Um, Another one that would be common, sorry, I keep adding to the numbers, would be like epilepsy. If you have a kid
Oh
that
yeah.
is epileptic, which every administrator has had, and you have like safety plans and safety teams. If you're not comfortable sending your kid to school because of like their response to a seizure, if they have certain types of seizures that are really unsafe, and you just need you know more comfort and security in knowing like what the team is. And good example would be like you want to send your kid to school, they have lots of seizures, the school doesn't have a nurse or has like a part-time nurse or has just like a health room aide or something like that, and then they've never had a kid that has seizure, like those would be
Yeah.
that'd be like a totally legit reason, similar to
Yeah.
the diabetes thing. So I think that my answer for all of these would be you know a list of like 6 things that are really like critical health needs or communication needs that would be taken into account, and those families like know who they are.
Yeah.
They're not like
Yeah.
listening, thinking like, "Oh, is that me?"
Oh,
No, they've
that's
already
yeah.
like
Yeah.
thought about this before. Like does your kid have like a G tube or something like that?
Yeah.
Like something that requires some special staffing, or public schools are really good at that kind of stuff, but private schools, you're not always going to have that.
Right.
That's one of the downsides. So yeah, that those would be all my considerations. And like I said, those people know who they are, and
Yeah.
they've had that conversation with themselves already. So if you're not in that like bucket of type 1 diabetes or G tube or epilepsy or these like really like tough, traumatic, time intensive, emotionally exhausting things, to be in as a parent, like you should just feel lucky that that's like not your situation. And like because those parents are constantly thinking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And those are the parents that I feel like are really having the big, not like ideological thoughts about it, but like logistic functionality thoughts about it.
Yeah.
So if you find your thoughts to be dwelling on more like functionality and safety and things like that, then yeah, like have a conversation with the principal and like the pupil services team or
Yeah.
the school psychologist about those concerns. And
Yeah.
that would be my biggest. But if your thoughts are more like ideological or like subjective, then I would say press pause.
Okay.
That was a really long answer. I'm sorry.
That yeah, you violated the game rules, but I'll allow it because I think it'll
Okay.
help some people. Oh my gosh. Okay, hot topic, hopefully made simple. Thank you for answering all of these questions and hanging with me. I know that this will be well received by parents of
Hopefully,
4 to 6-year-olds. Hopefully. I
hopefully,
think I think what maybe why I think it will be well received is because I think there's just so much information just to do it. Um and somebody once said to me, I was talking to somebody about summer camp, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so hard for so many parents to like let their kids go away for 4 weeks because that you hear like you only get 18 summers with your kids.
yeah.
And they're like, you're making their childhood about you and not them. And I was like,
Yeah, the
oh
summer camp thing is that's like a very regional specific thing. I mean, it's very popular out east. It's
yes.
not it's like ishy kind of popular in like the northern parts of Chicago. I know they send like lots of kids.
Yeah.
I'm not from the northern parts. I'm from like the southwest suburb of Chicago, so like I didn't know many people that went to camp at all. But there's like a whole subset of like the north suburbs that send their kids up into Wisconsin, into God's country,
Yeah.
and they just like leave them. And I couldn't even imagine doing that.
I know.
Um, I I just couldn't even imagine doing it. But there's like, some people, that's what they did for when they were kids, and that's how they met their significant other, and like all these stuff like that. So there's like lots of historical stuff that goes into it. There's like religious camps and things like that. So I think that unfortunately all the stuff with that horrible tragedy like last week with the camp is going to like throw a lot of
Ugh.
that into relief, um,
Yeah.
as like a conversation point. But that's like a real big thing. That's a real big talking point, that I think is going to keep coming up now, and it will get even heightened even more. Unfortunately, that's not how you want to be able to talk about it, but that's going to be a big
Yeah.
one too.
Yeah, you're
Say
right.
that one.
Yeah, save that one for another day. But your kids are having their childhood. It's not just happening between 8 and 3.
It shouldn't be.
As it turns out, it's happening when they come into your bedroom in the morning and snuggle for a minute before you open your eyes, or in the moments when you're at the grocery store laughing about trying to read how they wrote hot dogs, or in the car on the way home from school as they're telling you a story of what they learned to do that day. I think we just have this fear that is like, oh no, I have to be doing everything perfect, but their childhood is happening in all the minutes of the day.
Yeah, childhood happens in like the imperfect moments too,
Right.
and that's that's really what summer is supposed to be all about. And
Yeah.
there's so much structure in the kids' days. outside of summer, the more you can, you know, they call it like whatever, '90s kids summer, but I
Yeah.
mean it's really, I really subscribe to that more than I would, like the whole redshirting idea. Like really, like try to give your kids some of that like kind of stuff that you remember. Like drop your kids off at the library, pick them up at
Mhm.
45 minutes later, even though you've
Yeah.
been
Let's say, look at
you
the
know
clock right
shivering in the
here.
parking lot or like hiding behind a bush the whole time. Like that stuff's good for parents and for kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right. That's a great idea.
that's a like online movement that I'm not opposed to, because anyone who knows me as a parent would not be surprised that that's pretty much like how I do things. So
I love it.
I keep a set of boots and a little aquarium in the back of my car in case the urge ever strikes the kids to go and trudge through something and
Oh, I
try to
love it.
catch something. So
I always keep a swimsuit in the back of my car just in case.
yeah, I mean, there's certain things like that where like if you're ready for that kind of sporadic thing, then you're like doing 75% of the work of like providing that experience. I hope my kids remember that, when they're older, is that's like what they always did. They're not going to remember, you know, me like going through like sight words with them or like anything like that. So
Amen.
yeah,
Wow. You're right. So don't stress. You're you're doing it. The kids are going to be fine.
yes, kids are going to be fine, and just yeah, try to not read too much about it.
That's a great tip. I like it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It was good. It was always fun.
Yay. We'll have
We'll have to
to
come up with another big list of things next time the
Oh,
things get too hot on the interwebs.
I know. I'm always just going to come straight to you.